Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad Sakhir Afzal and I would like to go over all that I have learned during this course. So this course basically consisted of six small courses, and the first course was like fundamentals of project management. It consisted upon like four basic modules that had like, for example, many subtopics, and which had like many videos of themselves and like readings and then quizzes and all of that and ungraded assignments, for example. So we'll go over each module one by one. So the first module, for example, consisted upon the basic definitions about like groundwork for understanding the fundamentals of project management. I begin by exploring the basics of project management, like delving into definitions, for example, the skills, the tools that we might need in order to like excel. For example, it was a very basic thing. Okay, so during the second module, we had in the second module, where is it here? During the second module, it consisted of the basic data on how to become an effective project manager. We delved into the intricacies, like you can say the project manager roles and responsibilities, like how the valued a project manager is within a society or within a corporation, or you can say like that. Like it consisted of various theories and various experiences by different people, like their videos and readings. And for example, it also had, I remember it had like a theory about a project manager and how it wouldn't survive, the corporation wouldn't survive without a project manager. And then we had about, like as I said, the course like further elaborated about the roles and responsibilities, like opportunities and tasks, for example the interpersonal skills. For example, a person, the main, in my opinion, for example, it wasn't stated in the course, but in my opinion, empathy is the basic thing that a manager should possess in order to keep its member and the workers working efficiently and effectively, and maybe also it might care about the happiness of the employees. And then moving on to third module, for example, like we explored like the project life cycle. For example, yes, that was it. I remember, yes, it was the project life cycle and methodologies. Like for example, we need to understand the project life cycle, like different project phases and the tools that were used during the project cycle. For example, as you can see, it was a case study and like testing your knowledge. As I said before, the course had a very like self-explanatory, different quizzes, different videos, and different, for example, different discussion panels. So if we use that clearly, we would be able to get a clear sense of what was being taught in the course. Then then the second subtopic was like, for example, analyzing the different project phases. For example, we need to be aware of, for example, I do believe that these are not that important, but because like in practical life, these phases are not being implemented clearly, but was the part of the course, and we need to be aware of it, so I can understand its importance and why it was in the course in the first place. And then in the end, we had a practice quiz. For example, it was like 4 to 6 questions, and I do believe it does have a weightage in our total grade. So it was like the third subtopic was like comparing project methodologies and approaches. For example, different countries approaches and different like conventional ideas and more contemporary ideas. So moving on to module number 4, like at the end of each course, for example, in module, if the course consisted of 4 modules, there was a like 50-minute quiz at the end of each last module. So during the main subtopics of this module was like organizational structure and culture. For example, in the last subtopic of module number 3, I told you that it had like, for example, like contemporary views and cultures, like conventional ideas and different kind of ideas like that. So we delve into like more explanatory issues in this, and by understanding the interplay between organizational structure and project management, I think we gained a deeper appreciation for like the complexities a person might face or employee might face in like leading projects within different organizational context. So there was like, I believe that in the course there was many optional things, but these optional things, if we do that by heart, I believe that they were very fruitful in terms of that. So that might be end of the first topic, but it was not. Like we have like many other things too. For example, in module number 4, you can see on the screen that we have how this video give us a little practical outfront towards how we can go and search for a job, like practical possibilities and something like that. And as I said before, like we have a challenge at the end of each course, like as our main course, like the bigger course had 4 sub courses, like 6 sub courses, I'm sorry. And so each course has like 4 to 5 or 6 modules, like average it has 4, it may have 5, it may have 6, bases on different values. So this course, like the fundamentals, had like 4 modules, and there is a quiz as seen here, and there's a glossary for it. So basically I got, like, for example, 100% grade during the 4th module. And I do believe that each module has a quiz, but the quiz at the end of the bigger module has more weightage in terms of grade. So that was it, the end of the course number 1. Like, coming back to this course, like for example, now this is a specialization course whose name was like project initiation, like starting a successful project. So this was a course within deeper, like delving into like the steps that we can face, the steps we need to do in order to start a project. For example, the formal steps that we need to do. As I said before, I do not believe that we need these like formal steps, because in practical world they are not of that usage, but still we need to go over it, so I'll go over it. It also had like 4 modules. For example, in the first module we had the basic introduction, like getting started with the course, like different videos and different resources we need to get started. Then the other topic was understanding the key components of the project initiation, like why is it the project essential started, and key components, reflection and initiation and key components, etc, etc. For example, then Afshin had her basic experience to share with all of us. Then this was an ungraded thing, so I didn't do it because I didn't have that much of time, because believing so, like you have 6 courses and you need to do, like for example, 24 modules on average, so I do not think I had to do it. And in the last we had, for example, the review of what we did, and in the review we had a quiz, for example. So moving on to module number 2. These modules has topics like defining project goals, scope and success criteria, because we need to like determine goals and deliverables, explore project piles, initiation, like how to start SMART goals. Like we delved into like what SMART really means. It had like pronunciation for different other methods and steps to how to do SMART goals. And like for example, how to change goals from former goals to like different goals, and how the circumstances might change, and how we need to shift from how our past goals and objectives to new things, to new goals, etc. Navigating pairs, self reviews. It was a very like video of like 5 minutes or so, and like it also included activities and something like things like that. Introduction to OKRs. It was a tool that we need to use for a project, like creating OKRs for your project, because these are the necessary tools that are used nowadays in project management across the world. For example, like basically all of it happens online, so these are the new like contemporary things that are, and softwares that we need to be aware of like how to use them, etc, etc. Moving on to the top other heading that we had, like defining project scope. For example, like we need to be aware of like that why are we doing this project. For example, if the corporation is doing the project, or if group of people are doing that, they need to be aware of the scope of it, because if they are like investing their time and money and resources into that, then need to be like, they need to know that they are gonna get something in return. Either it is a goodwill or a profit or a monetary thing. It's like depends on the people. Then we have strategies, like information, like in defining project scope, we need to do all of that. Maintaining a project scope, strategies for project like different. We need to be aware of all of this, because in the corporate world we need to use it on everyday basis. We need to be aware of things, aware of these things, to give a certain point of view to different investor or stakeholders, and to make them feel calm in our project and the project of our scope, the scope of our project, sorry. Then we have a measuring a project success. Then we had launching and landing a project. Like they taught us, like in this video, like she or he, I am sorry, I forgot that. Like they taught us, like for example, how to land a project and how you need to like plan it strategically in order for it to succeed. then we can set the success criteria because it differs depending upon the context and the wishes of the people. And this was the, like, in this video, like, they like reading, they taught us, like, they told us how to link OKRs to evaluate progress, for example the software, and how to use it in this and that. Then we had the quiz for module number 2. So moving on to module number 3, we had, for example, like, the main headings are exploring project teams and roles and responsibilities. For example, a person needs to be aware of what their roles and responsibilities are. For example, working effectively with stakeholders, for example the people who have invested their money into the corporation or into your venture. For example, they need to be like relieved or have a sense of comfort that their money or their assets or what they have invested in is going to a better cause, or going to a cause that will earn them profit. Then we were taught on how to choose a project team, like, for example then we had a reading of the building blocks of project dream team, defining project roles, essential project roles, and this and that and all of that. Then we had evaluating stakeholders. For example, we need to be aware of who the stakeholders are. For example, if a person, for example a manager, he is also a stakeholder because the responsibility of all the project comes onto the manager. He needs to be aware of, like, stakeholder interviews. We need to conduct all of this. We need to be aware of these concepts in order to become like a successful person. Sorry for my different kind of words. Then we had activities of different kinds of testing our knowledge and what we had learned, and I believe that I have completed them easily, so you can do and check that. Then we were taught about, like, assigning project roles and responsibilities, and we were taught using the RACI chart, which basically assign team roles and responsibilities in the contemporary world, and how we can use the RACI chart in different contexts and such that. So it was all of the RACI chart. Then we had the quiz of module. So moving on to module number 4 of the project initiation course. Then we had introduction about resource needs, for example, like how to, like, utilizing resources and tools for project success and all that, essential project resources and managing resources to get the job done. For example, this basically subhead was about, like, analyzing the resources that we need to get our job done, and how we can get those resources, the access that we have to all of that, and all of this and all of that. For example, we had readings and videos of like 5 minutes or so. So I think that it was taught to us in very great detail. And then we had developing documentation for project kickoff. For example, if you're working in a corporate world, obviously you cannot say that I am starting this or that. You need proper formal planning, some type of formal planning, because, for example, if you're starting a corporation in itself, you need to go and register it within the government to get it started, and it takes time, and it has a proper process to it. So that, I think, that is being taught to us in great detail. For example, getting started in a corporate world, or even when you are in, like, developed in corporate world, you need to come up with ideas to get started with any project that you are starting or any venture that you are starting. So it was all of that. Then we had a charter project, for example, a project charter, like how to convey your ideas to authorities that you want to do all of this, and to stakeholders, to all of that. Introducing new tools. Then we're moving on to the other hand of the module number 4 was evaluating tools to meet project needs. For example, the first video was about utilizing tools for effective project management. Like, it was basically a video about coming up with different tools and ideas. For example, different metrics, different formulas, different softwares, different new things that can ease our way and ease our calculations into getting what we want. And then that's the video about project management tools. So I just explained it in very general form, like it has very some headings. Maybe some things came first and some things came second, so sorry for all the trouble. And then we had the final quiz for module number 4, which was in review. So that's the end of chapter number 2. So here we are on the third chapter of project planning. Like, for example, it was the project management is the third course. You can say it was the third chapter. It was the largest course by far because it had 5 modules in it. So even though all of the modules of the 6 chapters came at 24, it was like addition to being 25th. So moving on to module number 1, we had like basic things like beginning the planning phase, like how to do that project planning and how it is done in a formal manner. Like we had like getting started with the course, which basically consisted of introduction and different kind of ideas, like a general overview. Then the second part was understanding the planning phase components. For example, it had the benefits and the launching the planning phase and all of that, and facilitating a project kickoff meeting, like how to do that and how it's the job of a project manager to facilitate people like who are engaging in the project or something like that. Things like that, tips for leading a successful kickoff meeting, like how to do that, how to lead a meeting. Like it had very general communication methods of how to get started with the things. Then moving on to heading number 2, which basically was defining tasks and milestones, because if you are a project manager and you are going to start a venture, or you're going to plan about doing or achieving a milestone or achieving something, you need to like have proper tasks and milestone in place. You need to give tasks to people that you need to achieve this within some proper time span or something like that. Moving on, then we have understanding tasks and milestones, which are just sub videos of which refer back to the same heading. Then at the end of module number 1, we had a quiz, which is like compulsory at the end of each module. Moving on to module number 2, which was which it included headings like building a project plan. And building a project plan included different kind of like headings, which was like introductions, components, putting together all of the pieces, testing your knowledge, which was basically a practice quiz at the end of like each heading. So as I've said before, we have videos and readings and quizzes and assignments in each of the modules. So I think we have pretty much covered our knowledge, and we are able to memorize all of the knowledge that we are learning through this course. And I am just talking about myself, and I do believe that everybody else might have done the same, but I'm not sure about it. Moving on to the academic side of the course, for example, like using estimation to set project timelines, like basically what estimation is, like case studies like run fast, pay later, different theories about achieving reflection, time estimation. What is time estimation? For example, what happens if you face a delay in some things and how it affects your overall plan and all of that. Capacity planning for the critical path, like how you need to set a, for example, you need to have like these buffers in place and how to deal with like time estimations and time delays and all of that time. So this was all these videos and concepts. Then we went into then we move into the second heading, like the next heading, which is developing a project schedule. For example, time estimation also deals with going and following a proper schedule. So we had these videos, the graded assignments. For example, as you can see, I got 100%. I'm sorry if I'm just flexing, but that was it. Moving on, we have we were like in a reading, we were introduced to with different tools and templates and how to use these templates. And then we had introduction to Kanban boards and how to like do time estimation using all of that. So it was a pretty insightful thing. Then we had as I've said before, we have a quiz at the end of each module. Moving on to module number 3, this was managing budget and procurement, because it was a part of project planning, and project planning has many, like for example, different subtypes. So project planning and time estimation are the main things that I do believe have very importance in terms of project planning. So a project manager needs to be aware of how to manage the budget, because there is a limited amount of money that a person, a group of people, or the investors can invest in a possible venture. Then we had a basic introduction about how to understand budgeting and procurement concepts and all of that. Moving on to the other heading, we were taught in detail about managing a project budget and creating a project budget, helpful budget templates, maintaining a project budget. Like for example, it was a video reading and all of that. And as I've done before, I don't think that I need to go in detail, because it will surpass 20 minutes if I start and explain everything what I have learned in this course. So I do believe 20 minutes isn't enough time to explain all of this, so I'm just going over all and giving a small info about what I have learned. Then we had budgeting terms, introduction to what budgeting terms are and how to maximize the output when like using minimum amount of money and all of that. And then we had introduction to procurement, what procurement is, and the procurement process and all of that, and the tips you can use, the common procurement documentation and all of that. Then we had the activity and activities because the Coursera assesses on what we have learned at the end of each module and each heading, I believe. Then we move on to the other heading, which was like navigating procurement challenges, the challenges a person and a manager or a corporation might face. And I do believe that these are all interlinked, but as we are learning about project management, we were taught in terms of those perspectives and contexts. And then again we had a quiz at the end of module number 3. Moving on to module number 4, which I believe is basically about risk management and identifying risk and all of that. So I do believe that I have surpassed, for example, I think like 13 to 14 minutes. So I'm gonna speed up the process because I am not allowed to go over 20 minutes. So it was basically about risk management and all of that. Like we need to be aware of how to identify risk and how to create a fishbone diagram, because in this chapter we were taught about how to create that and how to identify risk in terms of fishbone. So all of this. Then we had like mitigating and communication risk, like communicating risk. For example, if I am a project manager, I need to communicate my risks to my stakeholders or to my employers or to the persons who are getting affected by my projects or ventures. Then at the end of module number 4, we had as usual our quiz. Sorry for my slip of tongue. Then we'll move to module number 5, which was basically about effective communication plan, where like we need to be able to communicate. Like for example, there are 2 terms of communication. For example, there is formal communication, which might be in terms of verbally, and then comes documentation like memos, mails, and all of that. Like we were basically in this chapter, like in terms of documentation, we were taught how to write a mail and how to use proper vocabulary and respectable words, like to do convey our message politely, and how effectively we can convey our messages to our employers or to stakeholders and to all of that. And then we had communication plan. For example, we need to do communication, like we were taught why communication is critical, starting a communication plan. Like I think everybody is aware of what communication is and how we can do that. So at the end of the session, we had like a quiz as usual. Then we had, for example, preparing for a job search. At the end of each module, we get a practical application of how we can get to use our skills that we have learned in this course and apply them to a practical life. So as the quiz happened, and we are done with it. So moving on to chapter number 4, which was project execution, like running the project and the difficulties and how to handle the difficulties that we might face during running this project. So basically this was the biggest chapter. It had like 6 modules, so I'm not going to go in detail about these 6 chapters. So I'm just going to basically explain what's happening in each module. So during the first module, we are like introduced to how to execute a project, like introduction, like course overview, importance of tracking, like how we need to track project and project outcomes and project habits and what the project is achieving, like managing a budget as we have talked in the previous module, managing multiple tracks and the ways and the different theories that come into it, and then changes in risk dependencies and how risk and how to factor risk, and communicating issues to stakeholders. For example, as I said before and as I have explained multiple times, that the stakeholders need to be relieved of what's happening with the money or with the investments. Moving on to module number 2, and I do believe that is, for example, quality management and continuous improvement. For example, you need to be aware of quality, like introduction, quality, key quality concepts, and for example, fostering customer relationships with communication skills, because quality is the thing that people are looking for most in the world. Because even if your project is new or innovative and all of that, people might have incentives, people do have incentives in terms of that. If not you, your other products, your other competitors in the market, which can easily replace your products or your ventures. So you need to be able to communicate with stakeholders and to make them relieve or to make them come and invest in your ventures and all of that. Continuous improvement and like pursuing communication, continuous improvement. You need to continuously improve and you need to innovate, like how the world is changing, and you need to change your ways, not stuck onto conventional ideas for that. The purpose of retrospective and how we can utilize these practices within our businesses and all of that. Then we had a quiz as we did in module number 1, module number 2. Then moving on to module number 3, which was data informed decision making. So we need to do, or we need to like make data, like we need to analyze data. We cannot make decisions based on our emotions and all of that, which was taught in these videos. Prioritizing and analyzing data, we need to analyze all of the data before making a decision. Discerning important data, based data ethics, we need to like learn them, we need to utilize them, we need to be aware of them, because we not just a business is operating within the country, it might go and interact with other cultures which have other ethics and all of that. Presenting and visualizing data, we need to be aware of how to use data to present a story in different tables, different views, different ideas, different theories, different softwares, all of that again. Then we had a quiz. Then moving on to module number 4, which was basically leadership and influencing skills, and importance of project management, that leadership. For example, as we might have learned that every manager needs to be a leader. So being a leader is not inherent job. It is a set of basic skills that a person needs to have, which can be grown, which can be innate, or which a person can develop throughout his life. This is a project necessity of project teamwork, influencing skills and all that. Moving on to like effective project leadership, like how necessary leadership is for the completion of a project and all of that. Elements of influencing, I'm gonna fast forward, so please hang on with me. The elements of influencing you included steps to effective influencing, like how you need to do the steps you can take, the ways you can communicate with other people to influence their decisions positively to achieve the goals of the organization. Then we have the review, and then we had our quiz. Moving on to module number 5, which is basically effective project communication, like all of that again but in a different view. Then we had a quiz. Moving on to module number 6, which is basically introduction to like closing a project. Like if you are closing a project, you need to be aware of how to close it. There's a very formal way that was taught to us within this course, like the steps for closing process, like closing process for clients and stakeholders, demonstrating project impact to stakeholders and all of that. And then Sarah, she did her experience about why she loves retrospectives, and I do believe these experiences helps us give a deeper view into how like practical world works and how different opinions, like not just theory, like how this theory is applied within the practical world. Then we had a course review, and then we had a quiz. Finish. So this is the chapter number 4, which is agile project management. For example, like we were taught about agile project management and waterfall management techniques and all of that. So this also had 4 modules. During the first module, like we were taught about what agile is and the fundamentals of agile management and all of that. Introduction, overview, like resources to get started in different ways, like all of that. Introduction to agile, this and that, like popular agile frameworks like Scrum and how to use Kanban, XP and Lean into management practices and like all of that. Like then we had a quiz of that. Then module number 1 ended with a quiz. Module number 2, which was basically like Scrum 101, like agile framework, which was Scrum. Like we were given an overview of that, but then they explained it and all of this, and then quiz of it. Then module number 3, which was basically like implementing Scrum and how to use Scrum, like all of that, like practical outcomes and practical implications and all of that. Scrum events, Scrum tools, like we went into great depths and learned about it. Then we had a quiz. Then moving on to module number 4, which was applying agile in organization, like overall general agile practices. And then we had different videos, different practical experiences shared with us and all of that. Then we went into quiz, and then we are finished with chapter number 5. So moving on to chapter number 6, which is clearly the last chapter within the project management course, which is applying project management detail, like management in real world. So basically it consists of the skills and techniques that a person can utilize and all of that. So I basically, at the end of this course, I do think that all of these chapters are interrelated, because if we move along to the module 1 of the headings, we see that it is also like the same capstone overview. Like capstone, the main thing is about is that differentiates this chapter from other chapter is mainly capstone, the theory that we can like imply these practices that we have learned into a win-win outcome, like different stakeholders negotiating process and all of that. Moving on to module number 2, which is basically like building out a project plan, like introduction to building, like all of this that we have studied before, but still in a new different way, making accurate time estimates that we did before, that we went into great detail, like doing time estimation, and but it is in a capstone view. Moving on to module number 3, which is basically like maintaining quality. So as we did about like how to maintain quality, like we had a separate chapter for it, but still like it's in capstone view. So then we also have quizzes at end of each module, and then we have chapter number, like last module, which is effective stakeholder communication, like in capstone views, but we did have stakeholders communication in the, I believe, second last lecture or last lecture we did that, like we're preparing for an interview, like all of that we have studied. But this is a little bit different because it is in capstone view, that it is certification wrap up, because then the final quiz and all of that. So that's the end of the chapter.